Are you new to Cyberpunk Red and feel overwhelmed by the core book? Do you want to create a character but don't know where to start? Are you already familiar with the game but want some insight and inspiration to approach character creation in a new way? This is the first video in a 4-part series called Creating Your First Edge Runner. Here, we're going to go through the steps of creating a character. I'm going to provide some commentary on each step, and we're going to create an example character together. If you want to use the generated character for your own game, you'll find links to the character sheets in the description of the final video. Also, if you're watching this video as it's released, the second, third and fourth ones are already available on my Patreon and will be released on YouTube in the coming days. Cyberpunk Red has 3 approaches to character creation. The street rat method is the fastest way but has the least amount of personal customization. This is a method where you choose a template associated with the role you want to play. This could be a good option if you want to set up a game quickly or if you're going to run a one-shot. The Edge Runner method is another quick way of generating a character that relies on templates, just like the street rat method, but has more variation and customization within those templates. Finally, the complete package method is the most complex way of generating a character, but that relies fully on customization. If it's your first character and just want to start playing, I recommend choosing the street rat or edge runner methods to start out. They hold your hand a little bit throughout the process, but the outcome is still a competent character, although with less customization options. This video, alongside the second one, won't delve deeper into the 3 approaches. That becomes more relevant once we get to stats and beyond. Regardless of your approach to character creation, the first thing you need to select is your role. This is a character archetype that both sets up a basis for your narrative concept, but also gives you a unique role ability that changes the way you play. The role ability spans from rank 1 to 10, becoming more powerful the higher ranked it is. A starting character begins with rank 4, but it's possible to access lower ranked role abilities through multiclassing in-game. There is a lot to say about roles and role abilities, with some leaving a bigger impact and others feeling underwhelming. What's important is that you find a role that meets both your narrative fantasy and your desired playstyle. Do you want your character to be a frontline fighter? Do you want them to act as support? Do you want to be primarily social, physical or mental? Has the GM set up any rules about the kinds of roles you can choose or what kind of story they plan to tell? Are you going to play solo or in a group? While all roles can be played in many different ways, some resonate more with certain types of playstyles. Also remember that while your role ability gives access to a unique style of play, it's just one aspect of your character. My recommendation is to always avoid focusing too much on what is mechanically superior and instead choose the role that best suits the narrative concept you have in mind. In some games, you may want to pick a role to provide a specific playstyle or complement a larger player group. There are 10 roles to choose from. Rocky Boys are artists and social rebels. The role ability charismatic impact helps them influence others. Outside of combat, you can try to turn people into fans, or you can influence fans into taking certain actions. This is the role to choose if you want to play a social character with a large following of people who revere you. Solos are fighters and soldiers for hire. The role ability Combat Awareness lets them allocate points to enhance various combat abilities. They may allocate as many points as they have in rank, and their options are damage deflection, fumble recovery, initiative reaction, precision attack, spot weakness, and threat detection. The higher the rank, the more points you can allocate, and the more benefits you get in combat. This is the role to choose if you want to engage in a lot of combat and action. Netrunners are digital masterminds. The role ability interface lets them access net architectures, and the rank determines how many net actions they have per turn. Netrunning is a subsystem of its own that needs its own video to break down. This is the role to choose if you want to engage with digital systems and net architectures. However, if it's your first character, read up on the netrunning rules before choosing this role, just to make sure that you're ready for the extra complexity that comes with the playstyle. It's not that hard to get into, but it can be overwhelming if you're new. Techs are mechanics and inventors. The role ability Maker lets them improve, modify and invent items. Whenever a tech increases their Maker rank by 1, they gain 1 rank in 2 different Maker specialties: field expertise, upgrade expertise, fabrication expertise and invention expertise. This role ability has several elements to it, a bit of a subsystem like with interface, but not as comprehensive. Play a tech if you want to create your own things in game. Medtechs are street doctors and cyber technicians. Their role ability medicine is divided into 3 fields: surgery, medical tech pharmaceuticals, and medical tech cryosystem operation. Whenever the medtech gains a rank in medicine, they allocate a point to one of the 3 fields. Medtech is a good support role for a group that engages in a lot of action and tend to suffer injuries. Medias are reporters and influencers. Their role ability credibility gives them an audience and sources of information. The GM secretly makes roles based on the character's credibility to determine rumors that the media can be clued in on. The player's job is then to follow through on these rumors to publish scoops. Your credibility rank determines the quality of your access or sources, the size of your audience, the believability of your published stories, and their impact once published. If you want to play as a media, it's likely that your scoops will be tied to the stories you run in-game. By being a media, you can ensure that your missions in-game have a greater impact on the world at large. Even if you lose the battle, your stories may win you the war. XX are corporate power brokers. The role ability teamwork lets them build a team consisting of people with different expertise. The higher the rank, the higher the XX position within their corporation. At rank 3 and above, they start getting team members to work for them. These are basically NPCs that the XX player is bossing over. How they are acquired and managed is a subsystem of its own, where you roll team members for each job. This could be bodyguards, covert operatives, drivers, netrunners, and technicians. In addition, your teamwork rank also gives you perks within the corporation, such as corporate housing or health insurance at higher ranks. XX stand a bit apart from other roles and may not fit every type of game. You should play this role if you want to be the manager of a team of operatives, and if you want to be beholden to a brand or corporation. Lawmen are enforcers. Their role ability backup lets them call upon help from fellow lawmen. The higher your rank, the more competent backup you can call upon. However, backup may not always be available. You need to roll to determine if they answer the call, and then roll again to see how many rounds will pass before they show up. Also, if you abuse the system and call for backup in situations when it isn't appropriate, you may get in conflict with your supervisor. This role is a good choice for players who want to see a lot of action, but it's also a role that's easy to reflavor. You could technically choose this role if you want to play a gangster and have the backup represent your criminal organization instead of law enforcement. Fixers are deal makers and information brokers. The role ability operator lets them maintain networks of contacts and clients. The role ability is broken down into contacts, reach, haggle, and grease, where contacts represent who you can reach out to, reach represents the price category of items you can source, haggle represents how well you can strike a deal, and grease represents how well you can blend into groups and cultures. Play as a fixer if you want a social game with illicit businesses and networking. Finally, nomads are smugglers and travelers. The role ability Moto gives them access to vehicles. They add their Moto rank to vehicle-based skill checks such as drive land vehicle. When they increase their rank, they can option to add a stock vehicle to their family motor pool or upgrade an existing family vehicle. They can only have one such vehicle at a time, but they can call their family to swap a vehicle for another. Choose this role if you want to make your family and your vehicle a defining aspect of your character. Personally, when I decide which role to play, I generally don't look at the role ability, at least not entirely. I tend to favor the role that best fits my narrative concept. That being said, it's perfectly fine to reflavor certain roles to expand on the suggested concept. You can be a rocker boy without being an artist, for example. You could be a well-known professor who uses the rocker boy template and the charismatic impact ability to represent your books and lectures. Like I mentioned previously, you could choose the lawman template for the backup role ability, but roleplay as a nomad where backup lets you call upon members of your family. Technically, you could run a nomad game where everyone plays a nomad, but no one uses the nomad role. You could have a solo nomad, a tech nomad, and a lawman nomad, all being members of the same family. As for the character that I intend to create, I know that I'm going to play in a group of 2 other players. I also prefer to play social roles. Other than that, the GM has given us free rein to create character concepts, having said that they will tailor the story towards our characters rather than ask us to make characters tailored towards a specific narrative. Because of that, I'm going to make a fixer. A note on my character sheet that my role ability is Operator at rank 4. At this rank, Operator gives me local contacts and clients in the form of something like a city gang honcho, a minor politician, a corp exec, or a well-known person in my neighborhood. My reach ensures that I can always find a place to source up to expensive items for my clients on a piece-by-piece basis. My haggle ensures that when I'm successful at buying 5 or more of the same item, I get 1 more of that item for free. Finally, my grease ensures that I know how to get along well with at least one other culture in the area, as well as gaining a single language I don't already know associated with that culture at skill level 4. I'll take note of this later when I know more about the character. Once I move over to life path, I'm going to delve deeper into characterization, but I consider that one culture from Greece to be local nightclubs in a part of Night City. I imagine this culture to involve regular clubbers, event organizers, bartenders, artists and the like. Having chosen a role and taken note of my role ability, we're ready to move on to the next part of character creation and the next part of this video series, Life Path, where we're going to start adding narrative depth to this edge runner. Like mentioned before, if you watch this video when it comes out, the next part is already up on Patreon but will be released on YouTube a couple of days from now. I don't typically post YouTube stuff on Patreon, but I do have a lot of RPG content there. Do check it out if you're interested. If you're watching this video in the future and the next video is already out on YouTube, follow the link in the description to find it. Until next time.